Hey everybody out there, this is Harry coming to you from my daughter's van. Sorry about the lighting and everything, but the weather's getting pretty nasty out here. Windy and rainy off and on, and I was going to do it on my front porch, but I decided to just come inside the van and do it. So it is Top 10 Tuesdays. It is Thursday, a couple of days late. Because honestly, I didn't know what the subject was until I saw James's video. So I gave myself a little time to think of my list, and so I figured I'd do that. So these are my top 10 favorite directors of all time, and this is the list as of today, October of 2020, and this could change at any time, depending on my moods and what my likes are. And then I have 5 honorable mentions, which I'll do at the end of the video, and I'm not going to go into any great detail about the films, or I'm just going to give you my favorite films, or films that, at least the 3 films that you need to watch if you are not familiar with these directors. So, that being said, let me start off with number 10. Akira Kurosawa, Japanese director. I fell in love watching his films a couple years ago. I rented The Seven Samurai because when I started collecting Criterion films, I would look on YouTube and look at everybody's collection, and it seems like The Seven Samurai is in everybody's collection. I do not own it yet. I will eventually. I did rent it, the DVD from Netflix, and watched the film and fell in love with it. So it's one of those films that I will purchase eventually. I have not done it as yet. I do own Ikaru, because that is my favorite Akira Kurosawa film from 1950. And there's my neighbor going by. And so the 3 films that you should watch, my suggestion, if you are not familiar with Akira Kurosawa, is Ikaru, The Seven Samurai, and Yojimbo. So in The Seven Samurai and Yojimbo, you will know, if you're familiar with Western films, American Western films, that you'll know those 2 films are similar, where the basis of the Magnificent Seven, The Seven Samurai, and Yojimbo being one of the Man with No Name trilogy, the Clint Eastwood films, Fistful of Dollars. So, number 10 is Akira Kurosawa. Number 9, I just got finished watching a ton of his movies. I bought a few, about 8 or 9 of them, because I was in the mood to watch. So, is Spike Lee. Love Spike Lee. I loved watching Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing, and a few other films that I've watched over the years. Miracle at St. Anna. I watched in BlacKkKlansman. So, and I just watched a ton of his movies, especially from the 90s. His high point was in those times. So the 3 films that I suggest, if you're not familiar with Spike Lee, is Malcolm X, to watch Malcolm X with Denzel Washington, BlacKkKlansman, and Mo Better Blues. Very good film from the early 90s. So those are the 3 films from Spike Lee that I suggest that you watch if you're not familiar with Spike. At number 8, Michael Curtiz, classic film director. He directs my favorite movie of all time, Casablanca. So, the 3 films I suggest that you watch, if you're interested in watching Michael Curtiz, is Casablanca, of course, if you haven't watched that. Don't let James watch it. Captain Blood, with Errol Flynn, and Angels with Dirty Faces with James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart in that film, and Pat O'Brien. Um, great gangster film, late gangster film from the 30s. So, Michael Curtiz. He's directed tons of films, over the years, but he's one of my favorites. Number 7, personal favorite of mine is Buster Keaton. He directed or co-directed with Edward Klein, a lot of his classic films, his silent films. And I love every one of those silent films, the classic films. It's like James and Ian loves Chaplin. I love Buster Keaton just as much, and I put him on my list at number 7. And the 3 films that you should watch, if you're not into Buster Keaton and you're interested, is The General, his classic film from 1927, 7 Chances, another great film, and Our Hospitality, which is actually my favorite Buster Keaton film of all time. So, those are the 3 from Buster Keaton. At number 6, Quentin Tarantino. You think he would be higher on the list? There's really no ranking for these here. I just basically wrote down the list of directors. But the first one is my favorite director of all time. So, but Quentin Tarantino, classic film director, not classic in the classic, he makes classic modern day films that hold up to this day. People still talk about him. He's only made 9 films so far, but the 3 that you need to watch, that I suggest to watch if you're not into Quentin Tarantino, is Pulp Fiction from 1994, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was released in 2019, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and Reservoir Dogs, his first film that he directed. Reservoir Dogs is a classic with Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, and Harvey Keitel. At number 5, Billy Wilder, Double Indemnity, director of Double Indemnity, a lot of classic films, a lot of stuff, like Irma LaDouche and The Apartment and Some Like It Hot. So the 3 films I suggest for Billy Wilder that you should watch if you're not familiar with Billy Wilder is Double Indemnity with Barbara Stanwyck and I wanted to say Frederick March, but it's not Frederick March. It'll come to me. Anyways, The Apartment with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. And actually, he plays in The Apartment as well. Fred McMurray. Double Indemnity in The Apartment. And then Ace in the Hole with Kirk Douglas. And it's on Criterion, so you need to check that out. Those are the 3 films from Billy Wilder. At number 4, Alfred Hitchcock. Surprise, surprise, one of my favorite directors of all time. Not the favorite. I have a lot of his films. Classic director. He tops on everybody's list. And he deservedly so. I do watch a lot of Hitchcock, but he is not my favorite director. But not the number 1 anyways. But the 3 films I suggest that you watch from him, and if you're not familiar with Hitchcock, and I don't know how you're not unless you were just born yesterday, was North by Northwest, The 39 Steps, and The Birds. The 3 films that you need to watch. Now there's plenty more, and you can say, well, why didn't you mention Psycho, or you didn't mention Suspicion, or you didn't mention Spellbound, or Murder, or any of those other films, or The Man Who Knew Too Much, because there's so many of them. But these happen to be the favorite ones of mine that I think I should suggest that you watch. All of them are good. The Vertigo is another great film. They've done Psycho, and so yeah. At number 3, Martin Scorsese, on everybody's list, I believe. And I like his films and Spike Lee's for the same reason. They shoot a lot of their films in New York, and Scorsese filmed a lot of his films in New York in the 70s, which I remember the late 60s, early 70s, up to the mid 70s is the time I lived in New York, and seeing the buses, the clothing, the stores, the city, how it looked, the trash in the streets. Those bring me back. Those bring me back the memories that I had as a child. So Martin Scorsese does bring back a lot of nostalgia for me watching, especially his earlier films like Mean Streets and such. But I'm going to give you 3 films from Martin Scorsese that you should watch if you're not familiar. Goodfellas, of course, that's on everybody's list, is one of my favorite films of all time from Scorsese. The Last Waltz, film that he did about the band, their last concert. The band is a great musical movie. And The Departed, a more early 2000s gangster film, which I think is one of his best up there. And there's other ones too, like Shutter Island, Taxi Driver is another classic, Raging Bull, The Irishman that just came out last year. All great films, but these are my 3 favorite ones. At number 2, Steven Spielberg. What can I say? The first movie that scared the shit out of me was a Steven Spielberg movie, Jaws. Saw it when the babysitter took me to see a movie with her daughters. I was 9 years old, 9 years old when it came out, and that freaking shark scared the shit out of me. So, yes, Steven Spielberg, I grew up with him. Jaws, Close Encounters, E.T., Schindler's List, all of them. So the 3 films that, if you're not familiar, and you should be, I don't know why not, even Indiana Jones, it was one of the films he directed. These are the 3 films that you should get yourself familiar with. Jaws, of course, is classic. Schindler's List with Liam Neeson. And then Saving Private Ryan, which came out right afterwards. And there's other films in there. Of course, Jurassic Park and all that. But these are the 3 films that I like that you should watch. And I keep repeating myself, so y'all should already know that. My number 1 pick for the favorite director of all time, and like I said, these are not in order except for the number 1, is Frank Capra. And Frank Capra I have several of his films, and he shows Americana in those films. His early films, like from the 30s up to the 40s, show Americana, the man, everyday man, and how they rise morally to the occasion. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Meet John Doe, It's a Wonderful Life, It Happened One Night. All these classic films, you can't take it with you. Arsenic and Old Lace. All great films. All great films. Frank Capra, the 3 films that I recommend that you watch is It Happened One Night from 1934 with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. Alan Hale. Classic film, won a bunch of Academy Awards. If it's a film you're not familiar with, you need to get yourself familiar with it. Classic comedy, romance comedy from the 1930s Depression era. Next one, Lost Horizon, one that doesn't really get talked about much. Classic, it's on Blu-ray. Ronald Coleman's in it. Great film. It's been restored, albeit with still pictures to fill in the gaps, but it's been restored. Meet John Doe, my favorite Frank Capra movie, which I wish would get a Criterion release or a Kino Lorber release. Somebody restore it and put it out instead of these cheap $5 DVDs that you get. I mean, you can watch it on Amazon Prime for free. You can watch it on YouTube for free. The print is so shitty. In fact, but this film deserves better than what it's been getting. Meet John Doe has Gary Cooper in it, and it has, and always in this case, Gene Arthur, also Thomas Mitchell, or Walter Brennan. I'm sorry, not Thomas Mitchell, but Walter Brennan. Great film about a man who is poor, destitute. They use him as a story that he's going to kill himself on Christmas Eve, jump off a building, and how people just flock to him. He calls out these people. And then, because of the publicity stunt, he didn't want to do it. He wanted to keep his word to the people. He tries to attempt it. No spoilers, right? Anyways, if you want to see this film, if you're interested in it, go to Amazon Prime or YouTube. It's there because it's public domain. But it does need a restoration. It needs an official release through Criterion or Kino Lorber or Columbia Pictures. It needs to be released. And then I throw one extra one in there. It's a Wonderful Night, or A Wonderful Life, with Jimmy Stewart. And what a great film. Lionel Barrymore. Every year it's a watch. Just like The Wizard of Oz or like Willy Wonka, every year you got to watch It's a Wonderful Life. So those are my 10 favorite directors. Akira Kurosawa, Spike Lee, Michael Curtiz, Buster Keaton, Quentin Tarantino, Billy Wilder, Alfred Hitchcock, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, I can't talk, Frank Capra, the great Frank Capra. Tell me what you think about my list. Tell me if it's shit. I left out a lot of great directors. Yes, I did. That's why I'm going to give you the five honorable mentions, because there's so many of them. John Ford could have easily made the top 10. The only reason why he didn't, because I wanted to include Akira Kurosawa. John Ford, great American director, westerns, directed a lot of John Wayne films. He's a director that needs to be watched. And I'll give you two films of his that you should watch. Stagecoach, which is the breakout film for John Wayne, and The Informer, starring not Wallace Beery. You know, my mind is going all over Victor McLaglen, about the Irish IRA. Great film. You need to watch those. Other honorable mention, F.W. Murnau. German expressionist director. Directed a lot of great films. The two films that you need to watch from F.W. Murnau, The Last Laugh from 1924-25, and Nosferatu from 1922. Those are the two films, if you are interested in watching, start off with those two. Next one, Charles Chaplin. John James's list. Great director, directed every one of his feature-length films. The two films that you need to watch with Chaplin is City Lights and Gold Rush. Both classic films. All of them are classic. The Circus. But those are the two films I suggest that you watch first. Christopher Nolan is the next one. Honorable mention. Love his films. But the two films that you need to watch if you're not familiar with Christopher Nolan is The Dark Knight and then Insomnia with Robin Williams and Al Pacino. And then my last one, I'm just new to, and I've watched only 3 of his films, but I love the way he shoots his films, and I like the stories they tell. And that's Yasujiro, I'm not going to mess this up, Yasujiro Uzo. I know Brian will correct me on it. Anyways, Japanese director, same vein as Akira Kurosawa. From what I gather, Ozu doesn't do a lot of martial arts or karate films or ninja films or whatever you want to call them. But he's done family stories, and they get you to the heart. So the three films actually I'm going to pick for you, the three films I've watched. It was Tokyo Story, which I own on Criterion. The Only Son, which I just watched a week ago, which is a good story. First sound film he ever done. It came out in 1936. And then Last Spring, which he also done. So those are the honorable mentions: John Ford, F.W. Murnau, Charles Chaplin, Christopher Nolan, and Yasujiro Ozu. 20 minutes and 47 seconds into this. Thank you very much. My wife wanted me to throw George Lucas in there. I said he's only directed a handful of films. Wasn't even worth it. Even though they're classic films, he wasn't worth it on my list. But I'll throw it in as an honorable mention for my wife. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below. Tell me what your favorite directors are. Tell me what you think of my list. Put names of films of these directors in here that you think people should start off watching. Thank you very much. Take care. Peace out.